What's going on, guys? FadeitLuie here, bringing you guys a brand new video. We're going to be doing a high taper on my boy, so stay tuned. We're going to be starting off by saturating the hair and cutting the top. The reason why we want to saturate the hair and cut the top before we do the taper is because it makes it easier for us to blend the taper into the bulk. We started off our first guideline at the top of the head, and then we're going to work our way to the back and then the sides. When using your shears, you want to make sure you grab the comb and feed the hair into the comb while picking it up. Then you grab it with your fingers, pull it at its maximum length, then you cut when it's visible. As you can see here, we're working our way to the back and we're connecting that same guideline that we made on the top to the back. Now we're going to connect the guideline to the sides. He does want more of a blowout flare look, so we're going to make sure we cut enough off the sides and make it blend. Now that we're done cutting the top, we can move on to the back taper. We're starting off with our Anna's T outliners, creating our first guideline, contouring to his head shape. You want to make sure you're not pressing too hard, because then it will make this guideline very visible. Now that we're done botting them out, we can move on to our no guard all the way open and create our second guideline. There is a bit of bulk here, so I am flaring out with the no guard all the way open. I'm not going directly in, but if it does make it easier for you, you could debulk with around a 3 guard first and then use your no guard all the way open. Using your lever midway and all the way closed will help you erase that initial guideline. Now that we're done erasing our initial guideline, we can move on to the 2 guard all the way open and start to debulk as much as we can. As you can see, once I get to the top of the guideline, I'm flicking out and then recombing with my comb and then flicking out again. I hope you guys are enjoying the video. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe is greatly appreciated. Thank you. Moving on to the 1 guard all the way open, we're going to be creating our third guideline. Remember, we're going to use this same guard and the lever to soften up the line and get it ready for the half guard. Now that we're done softening up the line with the 1 guard, we can move on to the half guard and erase the line completely. Now we're moving on to our 3 guard all the way open, and this is going to help us blend into the bulk. There's a little bit of a dark line there, so I switched over to my 1.5 guard and I try to remove it as much as I can. Sometimes after using the 1.5 guard, there's still a faint line, so switching over to your 1 guard all the way open and using its corners will help. The hair was still damp here, so I pulled out my blow dryer and dried it up. Now that we're done debulking with the 2 guard, we're going to move on to our clipper over comb, and we're going to continue to blend in from that 2 guard into the bulk. This clip over comb section is very important, especially when it comes to these haircuts. You want to leave enough bulk there that it blends in smoothly, and you also want to take it down enough to where the blend blends in smoothly, because if you don't, it would be very rigid and you're going to be able to tell. Here I'm using my cutting blade vertically so I can blend into the fade. Now we're getting into the part where a lot of people struggle at. That's why when I go use my clipper over comb method, I pick up the hair very slightly, cut it off, see how the hair falls, then I repeat that same process until I like how the hair is falling and how it looks. You always want to remember that you're sculpting the hair, you're not just cutting hair off. Now that we're done debulking, we can move on to our T outliners and make them as crispy as possible. When I'm lining up the neckline, I always start off at the bottom and work my way to the top arch, just because I feel like it can make the fade pop out way more. When you get to the top arch, you want to be careful not to press too hard against the skin because the teeth of the trimmer will bite them. You want to make sure you go slow enough that the hair feeds into the teeth of the trimmer, because if you go fast, it's not going to cut. Moving on to the high taper, we're starting off with our T outliners, creating our first guideline. You want to make sure this area is nice and bald and clean. Now we're moving on to our clipper over comb method, and we're going to sculpt his silhouette. This is going to make it easier for us to blend into his taper and bulk. Now that we're done debulking, we can move on to our no guard all the way open and create our second guideline. As you can tell, a high taper is when we blend out the C-cups. Remember to use the lever midway and all the way closed to help you erase that initial guideline. Now we're moving on to our one guard all the way open, creating our third guideline. Remember, we're going to use this same guard to soften up the line and get it ready for the half guard. Now we can move on to our two guard all the way open and continue to flick out once we get to the top bulk. We're going to then use the lever to soften up the line and get it ready for the 1.5 guard. Now I'm using my 3 guard all the way open to continue to debulk right before my clipper over comb. Now we're using our clipper over comb method to make the blend smooth as possible. Now I'm adding extra detail with my previous guards and also switching over to my Antis outliner to make sure that neckline is crispy. Now we're moving on to our 1 guard all the way open and we're debulking his sideburns. Now we're continuing to fade in the beard with the 2 guard all the way open. Now we're switching over to our no guard all the way open and we're blending the top of the sideburn into the taper. Moving on to our Antis outliners, we're going to line up the back of his beard and make it as crispy as possible. You want to make sure not to take it too deep inside because then it will grow back weirdly. Now that we're done with this beard, we're going to move on to his front line and comb all his baby hairs down, then debulk with the 1.5 guard all the way open. If we use the 1 guard all the way open to debulk, it's then going to look too low. Now that we're done debulking and detailing, we can move on to our Antis outliners and make them as crispy as possible. I usually start off in the middle and work my way to the sides. You always want to make sure you go slow enough that the hair feeds into the trimmer, because if not, then the hair won't feed. Then your clippers are going to jam and then the hair won't cut. Now that we're pretty much done, we can move on to our Turkish razor and Derby premium blades and make them as crispy as possible. We're also going to be doing his eyebrows and his beard. A few tips when using the Turkish razor: you always want to make sure you stretch your skin as much as possible and also keep the blade at a 45-degree angle. Again, I hope you guys are enjoying the video. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. It's greatly appreciated. Also, if you made it this far into the video, leave a comment down below. I'm 100% gonna reply to it. What's going on, guys? FadeitLuie here, bring you guys a brand new video. We're gonna be doing a mid fade on my brother, so stay tuned. We're gonna start off by saturating the hair and combing everything in place. We're combing everything in place so we can have a neat canvas and nice silhouette. Now that we have all the hair laid down, we can switch over to our anti-outliners and create our first guideline. You always want to make sure you contour this guideline to their head shape so the fade can flow better. You always want to make sure you use your opposite hand to stretch the skin. Now that we're done balding them out, we can move on to our no guard all the way open and create our second guideline. You want to make sure you make this guideline around 1 inch thick so you can spread the blend. Using your no guard all the way closed and midway will help you erase that initial guideline. I hope you guys are enjoying the video. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. It's greatly appreciated. Thank you. Now that we're done erasing our initial guideline, we can move on to the one guard all the way open and create our third guideline. Remember, you're going to use this same guard and the lever to soften up the line and get it ready for the half guard. Now that we're done softening up the line with the one guard, we can move on to the half guard and erase the line completely. Now that we're done with our lower guards, we can move on to the two guard all the way open and create our fourth guideline. Always make sure to flick out once you reach the top of the silhouette. Also, I'm using my comb to feed the hair into the clipper. When using the two guard, you want to make sure you use the lever to soften up the line and get it ready for the 1.5 guard. Now we're using the one guard all the way open to connect the 1.5 to the half. Now we're moving on to the 3 guard all the way open, and we're continuing to cut into the silhouette. Us flicking out as much as we can is going to prepare us for a clipper over comb. Before you start your clipper over comb, you want to make sure the hair is nice and damp so it doesn't lift when you use your comb. Now we're going to feed the comb into the hair and pull as much out as we can. Seeing the density of the hair follicles that show through the white comb, you can see how much you want to cut. So the more you pull away from the hair, the less hair you're going to cut. So if you're a beginner in clipper over comb, always start off by cutting little by little. Also, when the cutting blade is horizontal, I'm debulking as you can see here, and when the cutting blade is vertical, I'm blending. Here I'm going back to my 3 guard all the way open, trying to make the fade as smooth as possible. Now we're using our thinning shears to thin out the hair. I did see a little bit of bulkiness near the edge, so I wanted to thin it out. Now that we're done with the side fade, we can move on to our Anna's T outliners and make a C-cup as crispy as possible. I always start off at the bottom and work on my way to the top arch just to make sure the hair feeds into the trimmer. Moving on to the back, we're going to start off with our no guard all the way open and create our second guideline. Once we have our guideline complete, we could then start to close the lever little by little all the way closed and then erase our initial guideline. Now that we're done erasing our initial guideline, we can move on to the 1 guard all the way open and create our third guideline. We are nearing the occipital bone, so you want to make sure you spend more time here. Moving on to our tool guard all the way open, we're creating our fourth guideline and we're using the comb to feed the hair into the clipper. We are nearing the calic area, so you want to make sure you be very careful and go as slow as possible without making any mistakes. Now that we're done softening up the line with the 2 guard, we will move on to the 1.5 guard and erase the line completely. Now that we're done using our 3 guard, we can switch over to our clipper of a comb and complete the silhouette. As you can see here, I'm using my horizontal cuts just to make sure I debulk, and then I'm using my vertical cuts just to make sure it's blended. Again, I hope you guys are enjoying the video. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. It's greatly appreciated. Thank you. Also, if you leave a comment down below, I'm 100% going to reply to it. Moving on to the shears, we're going to start off by saturating the hair and then creating our first guideline through the middle. Once we create our first guideline, we're then going to connect that guideline to the sides and make the fade as smooth as possible through the silhouette. When doing shear work, you always want to make sure you grab the hair with the comb, then your fingers, then cut with your shears. Now that we're done with our shear work, we're going to use the blow dryer to dry his hair.